top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Two-time super lightweight champion Regis Prograis took to his social media and stated Regis Prograis versus Adrian Broner, Toyota Center, Houston, Texas, in either November or December.
No.
I can wholeheartedly say that I am firmly against a Broner versus Prograis fight. Adrian Broner has done absolutely nothing the last year, 2 years, 3 years to earn a title shot. And you can't even call it a cash fight anymore. You can't call it a cash grab because Adrian Broner's marquee value is in the toilet. There's no reason for any world-level, world champion to take on Adrian Broner. He was last in action a few weeks ago against a fringe contender, a lawyer who moonlights as a boxer, and he couldn't even stop him.
That gets you a title shot?
A few years ago, there was perhaps more reason, more incentive to take on Adrian Broner, a fighter of limited ability, but a fighter who can sell a fight. I think Manny Pacquiao was the last to capitalize on that. Ever since then,
He's low-hanging fruit.
he's still low-hanging fruit, but he's low-hanging fruit that has a lot of financial demands a lot of money. The feeling seems to be mutual, as Adrian Broner himself is focused on Regis Prograis, saying, "I'm on your ass like back pockets."
That's funny.
To which Regis Prograis responded, "I'm here," though in truth, in spite of the mutual interest in exploring that fight, Adrian Broner for a Prograis fight is going to want a lot of money, more I think than Matchroom is willing to shell out. Adrian Broner may still think himself a marquee fighter with marquee value, but not that many people are actually interested in seeing him box.
Paying to see him box.
In spite of the mutual interest, if you had to ask me how I think this plays out, I think Adrian is going to want too much money for a Prograis fight. We know that Matchroom tried to explore a Conor Benn versus Adrian Broner fight. Adrian didn't like the money. I don't know what he expects to be paid.
He's gonna want them to break the bank.
You tell yourself that Don King didn't have to break the bank to get Adrian in the ring, so why would Matchroom? Well, Don King got him in the ring with a part-time boxer who's also a lawyer. To fight an actual world-class fighter, a world champion, Adrian's gonna want a lot of money for the risks that come with that.
He's not going to want for Prograis what he got for that lawyer guy. He's going to want substantially more money, i.e., I think he's going to price himself out.
Priced himself out of a Conor Benn fight well over a year ago. Well over a year later, I think he'd price himself out of a Prograis fight. I don't even know why Regis is entertaining an Adrian Broner fight. Broner's not worth now what he might have been worth years ago when he was tabbed to be the next Floyd Mayweather. Time has proven that assertion wrong.
I think Top Rank offered this guy something like $3 million guaranteed in 2015, 2016 to take on Manny Pacquiao, back when they still promoted Manny Pacquiao.
He turned his nose up at $3 million and an upside of the pay-per-view. That was years ago. Years later.
What do you think he's going to want for a Prograis fight?
Regis Prograis, who Eddie Hearn tabbed to potentially face Ryan Garcia, saying Ryan versus Regis Prograis, we can walk straight into that fight. Fuck Oscar.
Oscar De La Hoya.
You've got Ryan Garcia. If he wants to fight for the world title, we can walk straight into that fight next. Hearn told Fight Hub TV, fuck Oscar De La Hoya. The reality is, Oscar probably thinks I'm talking to Ryan Garcia. I've never had one conversation with Ryan. Never spoke to Garcia's manager or advisor, Lupe Valencia. I would not have those conversations while he was under contract. Someone asked me my opinion about De La Hoya publicly having spats with Garcia on social media, which I thought was bizarre. Oscar can do his own thing. It doesn't really bother me. The reality is, Golden Boy Promotions will only take fights they believe Ryan can win. They don't think he can beat Regis Prograis, because if they did,
they'd be in touch and we'd make that fight.
We're both on the same platform, so it's easy. They've never mentioned Regis Prograis. Why? Because they think it's a tough fight, and that's what happens in boxing. They like the Rolly Romero fight. Why? Because they think they can beat Rolly Romero, but they don't think they can beat Regis Prograis, and even if they do, please call me, and we'll make that fight next. There are loads of fights for Regis Prograis out there.
A potential Broner fight, a Ryan Garcia fight.
There are any number of names at or around 140 pounds that you can mix and match with Regis Prograis, but some of those names are more realistic than others. I'm not holding my breath to see a Prograis versus Broner fight or a Prograis versus Ryan Garcia fight. Ryan Garcia himself is more interested in boxing Rolly Romero for his newly obtained, albeit ill-gotten, WBA title.
and he's in the process of being sued by Golden Boy Promotions to continue to enforce their contract with him. It seems that Ryan wants to leave. He wants to go.
They don't want to let him. He's not in the running for a Regis Prograis fight. Not really. Regis Prograis, who said, after the Zorrillo fight, I definitely felt like I won it. I didn't see how they scored it for him, but I mean, whatever. I don't think it was close, but I know my performance definitely wasn't good. Prograis said after the fight, sometimes you overlook things. I have so many opportunities for such crazy money. Sometimes you look past these opponents. Maybe I did too. I was looking past. I guess I was looking past Socorro.
Zorrillo.
Danielito Tortilla made Regis Prograis look more human than anybody's made him look in recent memory. But you have to remember, in spite of making Regis look a little bit more human than he normally does, he still lost the fight.
So that's hardly a blueprint.
Another name in the hat for a Regis Prograis fight is Haney. Haney, who Regis Prograis says, I love the Haney fight. I think I stop him.
It's not far-fetched.
We've talked about that fight here on the channel at least once or twice, and how while Devin might have the right base style for the job, does he have the right level of physicality?
Can he take a shot? A clean one?
Regis Prograis warns that Haney would suffer a punishing defeat, and that defeat would likely end inside the distance. I love that fight. Devin is in a tough spot. He's got to fight somebody because a lot of people thought he lost against Loma, so he's in a really, really tough spot right now. He's like, he could go up to 140, he could stay at 135, he could fight Loma again in a rematch, or he could fight Tank, or he's got to fight Shakur, or he can come up to 140 and mess with the bigger guys at 140. So I think he has to do something big. If he wants to fight me, I'm with it.
There's been some back and forth between Team Prograis and Team Haney.
This past week, I think I saw Regis Prograis characterize Devin Haney as being somewhat timid, and Devin responded. As you can imagine, Devin didn't take too kindly to that, though in truth, social media barbs traded don't guarantee that this will be Devin's next fight. The most realistic fight out there for Regis Prograis, I think, is the Jack Catterall fight.
This stuff about Broner and Ryan and Devin, it's all good. It's all good for conversation's sake, but most of those names aren't realistic.
Broner's going to want a lot of money. So is Devin Haney, who's become quite accustomed to making a lot of money. Ryan, Golden Boy Promotions will not look to make a fight between Ryan and Regis.
Come on.
The most realistic fight at this point for Regis Prograis in the fall is the Jack Catterall fight, and I'm still very much interested in that fight because Jack Catterall, at least in my eyes, unofficially, he beat Josh Taylor. He gave him his first loss, just not on paper.
I don't think he'd drive as hard a bargain as Adrian Broner, as Devin Haney, as Ryan Garcia.
I mean, it's all good to speculate and bounce ideas around, but many of the aforementioned names are not realistic options for Regis. Jack is, and that is who I expect Regis to face in the fall. North of super lightweight, men's welterweight division, Keith Thurman gives Spence versus Crawford his blessing, saying, this is one of the biggest matchups. I can't be upset.
Keith Thurman was ordered to fight Errol Spence Jr. late last year by way of the WBC, but it seems like Errol himself had no interest in that, and he moved forward with a Crawford fight.
I maintain my original position that a big part of the reason we're here now is because Showtime needs the best metrics for this year and next year. The higher-ups at Paramount have given them a grace period.
On Showtime, boxing is safe, at least for now, at least through this year going into next year, which allows PBC on Showtime a grace period to put up the best numbers, the very best numbers they can.
And in order to put up the best numbers, you have to put on the best fights, the fights that people are actually interested in. People aren't interested in seeing Thurman versus Spence, at least not on pay-per-view. Perhaps as a regular Showtime fight, you could drum up big metrics, big ratings with that fight, but given what the fighters would want, what they'd want to get paid, you wouldn't have a choice.
To make the fight, you'd have to bill it as a pay-per-view, and if you billed it as a pay-per-view, the numbers would not be robust.
They wanted to make the biggest fight possible for the sport of boxing, Thurman told Fight Hub TV. There was nothing on my end to object to the fight. I'm a yes man. I'm a two-time champion of the world. I'm looking for that title contention once again. When champions fight champions, contenders have to sit on the sidelines, and that's just the way it is right now. So it's very difficult. There's a lot of tremendous talent in the welterweight division.
Well, you're not fighting any of it.
But you know, boxing has been criticized for not making the big fights happen, so it's like the fighter in me knows what I want. The Spence fight. The political boxing supporter in me knows that this is one of the biggest matchups of the year and that it had to be done. Of course, in the meantime, from last year when I competed, Thurman could have gotten in the ring with Crawford.
Keith Thurman only fought once last year, just once. and he's only fought once in the last 3 years.
Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. as a fight being made has opened up a door of opportunity for Keith Thurman. I'll explain later.
Yeah.
Thurman could have gotten in the ring with Crawford. Thurman could have gotten in the ring with Spence. Every day of my life, it can be 1 year, 2 year. Every day of my life is one day closer to my next match. I just have to have that positive outlook with boxing.
Because Keith Thurman isn't fighting Errol Spence Jr., because Errol is fighting Terrence, and because the winner of that fight is likely to leave the division afterwards.
Whether Terrence wins or Errol wins, irrespective of who wins, the winner of the fight is likely to leave the welterweight division afterwards and vacate all those alphabet titles. Don't forget that Keith Thurman is in line to fight for one by way of the WBC. So long as he holds that position by way of the WBC, once the WBC title is vacant, maybe he can pick it up. That's his best bet to become a champion at this point in his career, because I wouldn't pick Keith Thurman to beat any elite level fighter, any hungry young fighter that's out there in today's welterweight division. The best chance he has to see himself crowned a champion again is to pick up a title that no one is holding. That's the unique opportunity created by Errol and Terrence fighting each other instead of one of them fighting him. If one of them were fighting him, if Keith had to fight either Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr., he would lose, and he wouldn't be able to become a two-time welterweight champion. But if he holds his position and waits on the sidelines, he's actually got a better shot.
So maybe they conjure up a Santiago or a Ishmael Barroso,
a Cody Crowley, for a potential Thurman fight for the newly vacated WBC title sometime down the line. I could definitely see that happening, and that's the only way Keith becomes a champion again. That's the only chance he has to pick up a title.
after Terrence and Errol settle up with each other.
For the undisputed welterweight championship, which is something that Keith Thurman says boxing needs. It's something that not even Floyd Mayweather managed to accomplish.
He was very accomplished in his time, but he never did that. He never held all 4 alphabet titles at the same time. He was never undisputed.
These two are undefeated champions, Thurman said of Spence and Crawford in an interview with Fight Hub TV. The real thing is that Thurman was not supposed to slip up in 2019. If I was an undefeated champion, we would have been unifying titles together. 2 champions of this caliber, undefeated, going to unify the entire division, doing something unprecedented, something that Floyd Mayweather never accomplished in his career. This is what our generation needs. They need to gain the status. They're both future Hall of Famers, but somebody's just gonna have a few more words to say on their plaque at the end of the day. That's what the fighting is all about.
Floyd came close after the Manny Pacquiao fight. After he beat him, he was in possession of 3 of the 4 major titles at that time.
WBA, the WBC, and what was Manny Pacquiao's newly obtained WBO. It's the IBF title. It's the red belt that Floyd didn't have. Sean Porter had it, then Sean lost it to Brook.
Kell Brook.
Floyd never fought Kell. He never fought Kell Brook. Thurman, who was supposed to fight Spence earlier this year, said he's not too bothered by the fact that he's on the outside looking in, as Spence and Crawford look to establish themselves for welterweight supremacy. The Clearwater, Florida native expects to return to the ring this summer. From that standpoint, the enormity of Spence versus Crawford, you just can't be upset, Thurman said. We've got to keep it moving. I'm just going to do my job, and I'm going to stay ready for the world of boxing.
All he's got to do is bide his time, wait for those 2 to fight, then wait for the titles to go vacant so he can pick one up.
Just like that, he could see himself crowned a 2-time welterweight champion, though shortly afterwards, you can expect the winner of Ortiz versus Stanionis. You can expect the winner of Ennis versus Villa.
Shortly after that, you can expect them to come after him.
You can expect that. You can expect Jaron Boots Ennis, should he beat Roman Villa, to come after Keith Thurman. Jaron Ennis, who says, Villa's style is tailor-made for me. I'm going to make a big statement, and I happen to agree. While Jaron Ennis looked human opposite the ring, the Ukraine's own Karen Chukatsian, a mover, an outside fighter,
he's going to go back to being a wrecking machine with Roman Villa.
I'm excited to be fighting in the main event, and I can't wait to get into the ring, said Ennis. I know Villa is a straightforward fighter that's tailor-made for me. I'm going to win because I've been putting in the work day in and day out. All my hard work will show on the night of the fight. I'm ready to shine and make a big statement July 8th. My time is now.
As you can imagine, Jaron Boots Ennis has aspirations of getting the winner of Crawford versus Spence in the ring, but I don't think those aspirations, those dreams, will be realized. He does, however, stand a chance of becoming a welterweight champion once the titles go vacant.
Just like Keith Thurman, we just talked about. He'll be around in the welterweight division for the aftermath of Spence versus Crawford, irrespective of who wins and
once the titles go vacant, once the winner of the fight and the loser decide to move up and the belts are redistributed, Jaron Boots Ennis may see himself become a champion, at which point he's going to go looking for a signature fight. He's going to go looking for a big name. And Keith Thurman,
he's one of the few recognizable names left in the men's welterweight division. I'm very thankful to my team for this life-changing opportunity, said Roman Villa.
Ahead of this upcoming Boots Ennis fight.
Rashidi Ellis underestimated me before our last fight, so I knew I was going to win and go on to face Ennis. In order to be the best, you have to fight the best fighters. On July 8th, I'm going to score another upset and ruin another undefeated record.
I wouldn't bet on it.
And Rashidi Ellis, what Roman Villa was facing was an outside fighter, a defensively minded pure boxer that's not big on power. He's not an artillery fighter, but Jaron Boots Ennis, he's the opposite. He is. He goes in there with the intention of knocking the other guy out. Jaron Boots Ennis is best described as a very statuesque boxer puncher, whereas Roman Villa, he's a pressure guy.
Yeah.
He's a pressure fighter.
Yeah.
Pressure fighters may have a tactical advantage over pure boxers, but not boxer punchers.
You can afford to stand square to a Rashidi Ellis letting the fists fly because pure boxers don't like volume. They don't like activity, but boxer punchers,
not only do they love it, they look for it because it affords them all the opportunities they're looking for to let their hands go, to get off counter shots and big punches, to get the other man out of there. Styles, as they say, they do make fights, and while Roman Villa's aggressive style might have been too much for Rashidi Ellis, it's just what the doctor ordered for Jaron Boots Ennis.
I think he's going to knock Roman Villa out.
In a show that he is headlining early next month on the 8th, this is a fighter that Showtime is definitely behind. And in order to get him to cross over, they're going to have to throw some money at this guy. Moreover, they're going to have to throw some money at his opponents moving forward. Roman Villa is a solid victory for Jaron Boots Ennis, but it's not a high-profile one.
The casuals don't know him.
Enter former unified champion Keith Thurman, who I anticipate may still be around in the men's welterweight division and may yet see himself become a champion again, so long as he plays the sidelines and plays it safe.
I think he will.
The idea that today's Keith Thurman may one day share the ring with Jaron Boots Ennis in the near future, it may seem far-fetched, but I think it's something that Jaron Ennis would be receptive to, and an idea that Showtime may pitch to him for the right price, because Jaron Ennis needs a crossover fight.
Maybe they pitch that idea to Jaron Ennis and his team, Keith Thurman and his.
Maybe you have to pay Keith Thurman a substantial amount of money to get him in the ring with Jaron Boots Ennis, but you have to play to play.
Yeah.
You have to invest.
Otherwise, I don't know how it's going to happen. Otherwise, I don't know how you're going to get this guy to cross over into the mainstream.
You can have a steady streak of knockouts, highlight reel knockouts that the hardcores are aware of, but the same is true of Artur Beterbiev, and he's not a mainstream fighter. He's not a guy that the casuals are familiar with.
If you want to get Jaron Ennis to cross over, he needs a name.